Welcome to the Jeremiah Patterson Show. We have some major breaking news here. A 2-year-old has been deported in the United States without due process. A federal judge is arguing that the Trump administration, a district court judge out of the Western District of Louisiana is essentially saying that the Trump administration deported this young child to Honduras without due process. This is directly from the filing here. Quote, this is from the memorandum. Before the court is a petition for writ of habeas corpus and an emergency motion for temporary restraining order filed on behalf of VML. VML is ostensibly a 2-year-old United States citizen. On April 24, 2025, this court received a petition contending that VML was being deported alongside her illegal immigrant mother to Honduras. Of course, it is illegal and unconstitutional to deport, detain for deportation, or recommend deportation of a U.S. citizen. It goes on to read here essentially that this court long ago recognized that the nature of our federal union and our constitutional concepts of personal liberty unite to require that all citizens be free to travel throughout the length and breadth of our land uninhibited by statutes, rules, or regulations which unreasonably burden or restrict this movement. The government contends that this is all okay because the mother wishes that the child be deported with her, but the court doesn't know that. Seeking the path of least resistance, the court called counsel for the government at 12:19 p.m. Central Standard Time so that we could speak with VML's mother and survey her consent and custodial rights. The court was independently aware at the time that the plane tail number N570TA was above the Gulf of America. The court was then called back by counsel for the government at 1:06 p.m. Central Standard Time, informing the court that a call with VML's mother would not be possible because she and presumably VML has just been released in Honduras. In the interest of dispelling our strong suspicion that the government just deported a U.S. citizen with no meaningful process, it is ordered that the matter be set for hearing at 9:00 a.m. on May 16, 2025 at the Monroe Federal Courthouse. So essentially what the judge here is saying is that there's going to need to be an emergency hearing because the United States government, the Trump administration, has just deported a 2-year-old citizen in this country. A 2-year-old citizen without due process. Think about what that means here. A 2-year-old was just deported without due process. A 2-year-old to Honduras. And of course, the government is being very, very, not giving up much information in terms of what they're providing here. So we don't quite know if her mother was even with her. And of course, they didn't even allow for a call. So a 2-year-old was just deported. Of course, I came on to make another video about a federal judge getting arrested. This is really insane. But here's that video now. There is a huge breaking news story that transpired today that is developing more, and we're just getting more reports on it and how disturbing it is. A federal judge was arrested. A county judge, of course, was arrested today in Milwaukee. So a Milwaukee County Circuit judge was arrested. Her name is Hannah Dugan. She was charged, of course, today with 2 felonies on allegations of trying to help an undocumented immigrant avoid arrest after he appeared in the courtroom. Now, according to the 13-page complaint by the FBI special agent here, if you actually read it, that is not actually the case. I mean, the precipice for arresting Judge Dugan here is so absurd, and it is so legally, dumb that you just look at it and it really appears to be politically motivated. I mean, if you look at it here, this is from the exact moment of which they are claiming to arrest her on for obstruction of, allowing an immigrant to be deported. It reads here, quote, Attorney B heard someone announce ICE is here. Shortly thereafter, Attorney B heard Judge Dugan say that they said that she was going to call the chief judge before leaving the courtroom. Members of the arrest team reported the following events after Judge Dugan learned of their presence and left the bench. Judge Dugan and Judge A were both wearing judicial robes, approached members of the arrest team in the public hallway. Judge A's courtroom in location adjacent to Judge Dugan's courtroom. Witnesses uniformly, it says here, reported that Judge Dugan was visibly upset and had a confrontational, angry demeanor. Judge Dugan addressed Deportation Officer A and asked if Deportation Officer A was present for a court appearance. When Deportation Officer A responded no, Judge Dugan stated that Deportation Officer A would need to leave the courthouse. And then she basically asked them do you have a warrant? And the deportation officer A responds, no, I have an administrative warrant. Judge Dugan stated that the deportation officer needed a judicial warrant because, of course, an ICE administrative warrant cannot be used to effectively arrest or deport someone that is, otherwise, it cannot be used the same way a criminal warrant can be used. That is authorized, of course, by the courts. That is signed by a judge. You cannot just deport someone or arrest someone with an ICE administrative warrant. You have no legality to remove them or to apprehend them in the United States. That is not how our laws work. So the judge basically asks us, hey, do you have a warrant? He says, no, I have an administrative warrant. That's not a legal warrant. That warrant was not signed by a judge. It was signed by ICE. So once again, this just goes to say here once again that the precipice of arresting this judge for obstruction of the of allowing the arrest or deportation of a migrant is absolutely ludicrous. It is absolutely insane. She followed the law here, and you're arresting her for following the law. The judge has since been released. Of course, we are following continuous breaking news on this front. Just an absolutely astonishing, crazy story. But what this does point here to more largely, which is something that we do need to address, is that if they are going to arrest judges, if they are now attacking the judiciary in this type of way, we need to be prepared for what comes next. And we need to also continue to stand up and to fight back. Because what that means is that they're going after the courts. They've already gone after the courts by essentially defying federal rulings, but arresting the judges. That happens in dictatorships. That happens when authoritarian leaders consolidate power even more. Because if you arrest one judge, you can intimidate the rest of the judiciary from ruling against you. Why do you think they're trying to pass the No Rogue Rulings Act? To make it to where as federal judges can no longer issue nationwide injunctions to curtail or to stop what this administration is doing. But hey, arresting judges, that's sure going to put a fear in a lot of judges across the country. Think twice about saying something against this administration or lambasting or threatening to hold this administration or members of it in contempt. Think about what this means, that the United States has just become a country that threatens the judiciary. The United States has just become a country that not only defies the judiciary, but also arrests members of the judiciary branch of government. What does that mean for us as a country that is supposed to abide by the rule of law, which is embedded in the United States Constitution? What does that mean for us? We are in a 5-star alarm crisis moment. And it's not a moment that's surprising, but it is horrifying. Of course, in Project 2025, they mentioned very clearly that they were going to go after the courts, that they were going to go after the courts in terms of arresting the president's enemies, arresting people that the president views as that's in opposition to his administration, that is vociferously against everything that he does. We are in a 5-star crisis alarm moment. That exactly is what's happening here. They have just arrested a judge. She is released. But they're arresting judges. That is the big scream moment. They are arresting judges. And it's not just that. There was some other breaking news today as well, that the Department of Justice is not effectively justifying in a new memo, allowing ICE agents to go into people's homes without warrants to search for migrants. That is another thing that is happening today. ICE agents are going to go in people's homes, knocking down doors, kicking down doors to search their homes for migrants. When I said this was our Nazi Germany moment, when I said this was our Anne Frank moment as a country, I was not kidding when I said that last night in our special report about mass deportation, about immigration and what's happening in this country. I was not joking. We are in a crisis moment. It was not that this is insane. It's not that this is surprising. It's horrific, but it's not surprising because they wrote it in the Project 2025 agenda. They said that they were going to do this. The people that are surprised are the people that didn't study or the people that clearly have no ties to history and thinking that it's applicable to this current situation. I mean, that's the equivalent of Hitler's Gestapo. Going door to door to root out and to find the Jews, to find political enemies of Hitler, to assassinate the leaders that Hitler did not agree with, to make sure that everybody in Nazi Germany was in line, because if you weren't, sure enough, you were going to be captured, killed, or put in the concentration camps. Going after the judiciary, going after the judicial branch in the United States of America not only puts us in a constitutional crisis, which we already have been in, but it puts us in a situation where democracy is eviscerated even more, where democracy can also be eviscerated completely. The Supreme Court rules against me. The Supreme Court doesn't want to rule in my favor. Let's dismantle the United States Supreme Court. They are arresting judges now. Are you awake now? Do you believe the threat is serious now? I mean, I fear to say this, but it's kind of too late if people are still sleeping or people are just waking up. I mean, people should have woken up and voted the right way on November 4th when the election transpired. I believe it's November 4th or November 5th. But the point is, you should have made the right decision then. Now we are in this crisis situation now where Donald Trump is selling 2028 merch, flaunting the fact that he's going to run for a third term as president, even though that's unconstitutional. But here we are. Someone who threatens the very ideals of the guardrails of our democratic republic and who threatens the Constitution is President of the United States, 34-time convicted felon with 91 indictments. And we are in this situation now where a judge was just arrested. Despite doing her job. She did nothing illegal here. She did her job. She asked ICE officials if they had a warrant. They said they have an administrative warrant. No. Do you have a legal warrant signed by a judge? Otherwise, you cannot do this. So we're calling a judge for doing her job and asking the right legal questions in terms of people's civil rights, in terms of people's constitutional amendments here. We're arresting her for doing her job and asking the right questions. Because, of course, what other country would we be if we would just allow this person to be arrested by ICE with an administrative warrant? Like that's a real thing. You cannot arrest or deport someone with an administrative warrant. You need a real warrant signed by a judge. What we're launching into is something more dangerous. It is something more sinister. It is something more vile, where they will come after you no matter what the law says. And that's the moment we are in, and that's the moment we are, everyone is going to feel eventually as ICE agents begin to knock and to kick down your door to make sure you don't have migrants in your house, or if you're not hiding any migrants. This is our Anne Frank moment.